let's start with the deadly collision that happened right in my backyard. Hey, because as my house was burning, you know what else was going on? A passenger jet was struck by a military helicopter, and it killed a bunch of people, including ice skaters and others, as well as the 3 helicopter pilots in a horrific plane crash. Let's start with some basic facts and then get into this, because this to me is going to be how every crisis is going to be handled from now on. This is how every crisis is going to be handled. And this is why you want people who have a steady, boring hand and sound like Angela Merkel during a crisis like this. You want boring statesmen who know how to manage a crisis, who know how to leave it to experts, who know how to wait for information to come out before making bold statements about stuff they don't know about, or immediately weaponizing it towards whatever niche issue they want to advance to help their side. This is going to be the primary example for the next 4 years as we go through not only plane crashes, but as we go through natural disasters, terrorist attack, whatever it could be. We're now going to be at risk of, I mean, there's always been politicization around tragedy, but the immediate politicization of a tragedy when there's no facts to back it, made by the most powerful official in the country every time.
For the Prosecute Streamer Gappy Fund. He knows what he did.
We should prosecute Gappy. Thank you very much. I think he actually placed the lithium batteries. Thank you for the $5. So let's read the basic facts. American Airlines Flight 5342 and an Army helicopter collided in midair near Washington, D.C.'s Reagan National Wednesday night, sending the 2 aircraft into the Potomac River and killing all 67 aboard. In the deadliest U.S. air disaster since 2001. It's 9/11.
Hi, Dylan. I'm so sorry for everything. Heart love you, love the work you do.
Thank you, Uncle Iro, for the $20. The cause of the crash, 3 miles south of the White House in the U.S. Capitol, was under investigation Monday as the crew recovered wreckage from the river. Now, they've identified 55 bodies. Now, the problem is, these bodies are so torn up that they're identifying them limb by limb. But a helicopter comes down, collides with the plane, it then splits into pieces, and then goes down into the Potomac River over DC. And it was doing that as it was coming down into Reagan National Airport. And because of the way the crash happened and how the plane tore apart, the bodies are strewn everywhere in many different pieces, and it's been very difficult to identify the bodies. And it's made the retrieval process all that more difficult. And very quickly, just due to how what they were recovering, they went from a rescue mission to body recovery remarkably quickly in this instance. Now, the problem as to what caused this incident. Now, there have already been complaints about Reagan. Now, I fly out of Reagan National quite a lot because I'm from the DC area. I'm, Maryland, DMV local, born and raised, whatever, go Commanders. Now, flying out of Reagan National, the runway, one of the runways is okay, but one of the runways is really, really short. And you really gotta come down. Pilots have to be really careful when coming down on it. Now, if you're an experienced pilot and you have experienced air traffic controllers, you can make it work, but it's not the safest runway in the world. And so immediately people went into speculation about possible problems with, the runway or what was going on with that. And that was, of course, my first thought was, is it a runway problem? Because I've heard about this before. This is a complaint the DC locals have been talking about for a long time. But then the information that started to trickle out was that there was an elevation issue with the helicopter that crashed into it, because 3 soldiers were training on a helicopter and they were at the wrong elevation. The plane was at the correct elevation, but the helicopter was at the wrong elevation, and then there was a collision.
Occurred.
Now, exactly what caused that helicopter to be at the wrong elevation, we do not know. We are getting more information as time comes out, as you would expect from a tragedy like this, as people start to investigate and start to take the puzzles together and put them together to try to get a clear picture. For example, some information came out that they were possibly flying these helicopters while wearing night vision goggles. And with how many lights there are in the DC area, I could imagine if they were doing that for a training exercise, how that could possibly hamper their operation of the vehicle. You know, it could be any nut, but the thing is, we're at such an early stage that me confidently talking about anything or what did or did not happen as information is coming out, I think would be irresponsible. This, we just don't know. It's too early to say what happened. We know that there's an issue with elevation, but that's really it. And so at this stage, all we can do is wait for more information to come out, call it a tragedy, and say, hey, we need to pay more attention to not only safety issues in the DC airspace, but also clear communication between those operating air traffic control out of the DC area airport, Reagan National, and those who are training in the airspace. And I'm not saying we need to shut down, like, you know, training in DC. I mean, DC is the nation's capital. You're going to need to have people who are experienced in training in the area in case there's a crisis or, you know, January 6th electric boogaloo happens and we need operators on the ground, or there's some, you know, foreign attack, who knows? So it's not, we can't stop training people in this area. So there has to be serious improvements so we don't lose more people, because these people are like, from my area, there's people from Southern Maryland. A lot of people I know that were duck hunters from the Southern Maryland. There was a huge tragedy for the Southern Maryland. I know is a very niche community, but the Southern Maryland duck hunting community. There's a lot of like young skaters and people who are going to skating tournaments, both young adults and just children who are coming back from skating tournaments as an ice skating. Like a lot of people in this area lost their lives. And so when we analyze this, and I know this is such a simple call, such a basic call, but it has to be reiterated. I know appeals to common sense can often be made to like try to cover up like you not actually having to make an argument, but it's such a basic appeal, and I hate to make this appeal, the common sense to just wait for the information to come out before you start jumping to conclusions, especially when you haven't even recovered the black box from the aircraft. So we don't know exactly what the last reports were from the vehicle in question. We want answers, the family wants answers, everyone wants answers. And as people are still feeling the immediate aftermath of the disaster, it's not even been 24 hours. The bodies have not been all recovered. The bodies have still not been all recovered, but the majority of the bodies had still not been recovered. They were still sifting through the wreckage. No retrieval of the black box to analyze the situation. All that had been reported, and all that was reported of substance, is the same thing of substance that I'm telling you right now, which is the main thing, is that the helicopter had an issue of elevation. It was in the wrong place at the wrong time. How it got there, where the fault was, we do not know. But that's all we know, is that it was an issue of elevation. And Donald Trump, being the newly elected president of the United States, has to do his job and lead the nation after a tragedy, the worst air disaster since 9/11. And this man gets in front of the whole country, where all he has to really tell them is, hey guys, there was an issue of elevation. We need to improve the safety and and we need to find out what happened. Instead, he walks out basically every person you could think of. He walked out the vice president of the United States. He walked out the defense secretary, Pete Hegseth. He walked out like every beer. I was waiting for like random cameos. I was waiting for like Kevin Hart to get up there. I was waiting for like Bill Burr, Joe Rogan. Like it was like every government official you could think of. He shuttles up there to say little bits of information that he could have just said, right? Now, if he just went up there and then just made a call for calm afterwards, then maybe I would be forgiving, be like, okay, whatever. He's just showing unity in government. But he drags this process out, going to all these people unnecessarily. Then he gets to Trump. Okay, he's the president of the United States. He's supposed to tell us what's going on. He's the president. He leaves the country. What is he going to say? And Donald Trump says the basic one piece of information that people need to know is that there was an issue of elevation, and then immediately
Burns is
starts speculating, immediately starts thinking. And of course, what direction does he speculate in? Does he speculate like, hey, well, you know, people have been talking about forever the length of the Reagan National Airport. Anybody who lives in this area knows, if you fly out of that airport, that there's been issues with the length of the runway because there's some safety concerns, because it's a tight squeeze. Put it lightly, a tight squeeze. Thank you everybody for the donations and subs. I appreciate it. No, he starts saying that maybe it was diversity, equity, and inclusion. Maybe it was DEI. Maybe it was the woke. Maybe it was this. Maybe it was that. And he starts speculating in these ways, and then starts pushing reforms in these ways. Even though, like,
Burns is
if you want to talk about
morally corrupt
changes that have been made in the last short bit of time that could have led to something like this, I would immediately think maybe firing the head of the FAA
is occurred
without any replacement.
Daku Zapad Trimku Ukraine.
Thank you for the 20. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. But no, it's immediately speculation into the area of diversity, equity, inclusion. When we didn't even know who was involved, retrieve the black box, he just immediately goes into it.
Last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way.
Okay, so just quick little addendum to this. He did nothing. He didn't restore any like high standard where it was like before, like, do you know what an airplane is? Okay, get out there. No, it wasn't like that. He didn't like raise the bar tremendously in any way or shift the standard in any way that would make people say, oh my gosh, the safety standards are so much more stringent right now. The main issue in air traffic control, from everything that I know, from the few people that I associate with that work in that industry.
Hey Dylan, I'm so sorry for your losses. I love your work and I hope this helps. Make sure to speak to a good adjuster, house insurance, and watch out for scammers looking for house fire victims.
Thank you. I've been told to look out for the scammers quite a lot. I appreciate the tenor.
Restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers.
Oh yeah, the issue that I keep hearing is a problem of understaffing. That a lot of these airports just don't have enough air traffic controllers, period, and they're having to bring in large amounts of aircraft every day while understaffed, and they don't have enough people to operate. Now, of course, it's always better if you have better staff, but he didn't change the standard all that much. And the big issue I'm hearing is a question of understaffing, not having enough air traffic controllers, which is not something he's addressed in any manner through his new standards or his changes.
And others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word.
By the way, this is the only other shtick besides it was okay, there was a problem with elevation, then he throws that out, and immediately we need smart people to do air traffic control, even though we don't even know if this was an air traffic controller's issue, and then diversity. So the answer to this is smartness. Smartness and diversity. It's like we just need to be smarter, means nothing, and diversity, equity, inclusion. Niche political fight issue that they have been crusading on forever. The immediate politicization of the tragedy, less than a minute before a minute after he walks on the stage.
Word talent. You have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellect.
Like, why would he choose this moment to talk about this? Why wouldn't he talk about Reagan International? Why wouldn't he talk about the infrastructure issues in the area? Why wouldn't he talk about understaffing? Why wouldn't he talk about coordination between the Defense Department and air traffic controllers? Why wouldn't he talk about issues with training? Why wouldn't he talk about anything that has to do with this in any manner? Why? Well, the diversity, equity, we have no clue how these standards could have had any impact on this. It's just pure speculation right on the corpses of those people. And it's also implying that people could have been at fault before we know who's at fault. And I could imagine, like, I've seen some pictures of, like, for example, one of the people who were on the helicopter, and they're a woman. And so people are saying, oh, look at this woman. I wonder if, and it's suggesting as if this person was chosen even though they didn't meet the standard because X, Y, Z. So it's leading to the classification of people purely by race and gender. It's doing the exact thing that it's colorblind, sex, gender blind advocates say it's supposed to counteract. That every single time there's a tragedy, people look for the black guy. Every single time there's like a train crash, or there's a plane crash, or there's a problem with this or that, then it's immediately, where's the woman, where's the black man, where's the minority person that I can point at and blame it on. It's not bringing about the colorblind society that they're advocating for. If this way that they're talking about employing and talking about race really made everyone forget race existed, sign me up, okay? It didn't. It doesn't. It didn't. And now its biggest advocates like Charlie Kirk are saying they're scared of black pilots. And in tragedies like this, instead of talking about real issues that affect people from this area, I fly out of that airport. This is like an important issue to me because I don't want to, survive the bomb, survive the house fire, and then blow up in a plane because the president was too busy being scared of black lesbian pilots to, properly extend a runway or coordinate training better.
Today's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe.
So a crazy person crashed the plane. Is that what's being implied? It was somebody went in there and it was like, oh, the FAA hired someone because they were so crazy and they just needed to. What?
Disability.
Like this has nothing to do with this. This isn't what you talk about after a disaster like this.
These are most underrepresented.
This is like the most basic role of the president, by the way. Just like being a steady hand during a crisis. That's the most basic role of the president.
Segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them. They can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into.
Oh, so in 2 weeks, since they've implemented this policy, this diversity policy at the FAA, it's so degraded our air control that it led to this disaster, even though we have no indication that it was even the air traffic controller's fault.
Hey, big man, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. Played Civ V with you and Merc one time. I betrayed you as the Scythians.
You did.
Hope this helps you get back on your feet. Slava Ukraini.
Look at that. Backstabs me in Civ, but supports me through a house fire. I would say we're even, maybe.
To the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration. This was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people.
You see that on the left there, on the right of the screen? That's the crash. I said I wasn't going to show it, but Fox, this is NBC. If NBC is showing it, then.
Initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened because of the stress, where you have many, many planes coming into one target.
How about we hire more people so it's less stressful?
And you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted.
Instead of trying to find 20 plane savants to keep the country held together with, like, you know, basically on string on our aviation industry, why don't we just hire well-staffed air traffic controllers?
Disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of...
Ukraine Groiper has donated $50.
Okay.
So sorry about the house and cat. No one deserves that. We are here for you, buddy.
Thank you, Ukraine Groiper, #1 representative of my community. Thank you for the $50. Dwarfism? What? Why couldn't why would that be so? Okay. Is the fear that they wouldn't be big enough to be seen by the planes? Like, what did dwarfism have to do with intellectual capacity? He's talking about smartness. Like, he's just throwing out whatever. Did he read this before reading it to the crowd?
A controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient...
Look how much time he dedicated to this. This isn't like a tiny little itty-bitty piece of time. He's dedicating a significant portion of time to just rambling about something that we have no evidence is tied to this mid-air collision.
Travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason.
Thanks for watching.
This is how the crises of the future are going to be dealt with. The crises of the future are going to be dealt with. How can I use this to immediately harpoon my political enemies? That's going to be the primary concern. And the secondary concern is going to be figuring out what went wrong. And the thing is, well, one might think, oh, well, the president will just do a public show and dance, but they'll deal with the real problem behind the scenes. Once it comes out of the mouth of Donald Trump, if that's like state policy, and you got a bunch of people under him who want to be loyal to a T, if his words are state policy, it could become a situation where instead of doing the real reforms necessary to save lives, it's just used as an excuse to do reforms that please their political backers, because it's they want less diversity programs in the FAA. So instead of improving the safety concerns that would have actually stopped a mid-air collision, it's like, well, let's concentrate on the diversity programs. So we still get the mid-air collisions. It'll just be with less, I guess, black pilots. What's the difference? In my America, I want to be killed by a white pilot. Okay? Thank you. Check the vote? Check what vote? What does check the vote mean?